Last week, while I was driving Winter's Chevrolet Bolt EV all the way from the east coast of the US to Portland, Oregon, most of the videos we published on this channel were pre-recorded. This is not only because I was on the road, but the majority of the team were off for a July 4th vacation week. And of course, as sod's law will dictate, when we're away, a whole bunch of things will happen. In the next few days, I and the rest of the team will do our darndest to pick through the big news stories and add some of them we don't have a chance to cover this week in depth to our daily shorts, and of course add some to our 10 news roundup show this weekend. But given where we were last week and what I was driving, there really is only one news story that we can start this week with. The unexpected fire reported at the start of the month involving a Chevrolet Bolt EV, one which reportedly had received the second, final software update intended to address sudden battery fires in a handful of 2017 through 2019 Bolt EVs. A 2019 Bolt EV that happened to belong to Vermont Representative Timothy Briglin. Given our recent videos on both Chevrolet Bolt EV fires and Hyundai Kona EV fires, and the harsh advice we gave to Hyundai Kona EV owners, namely that they might not want to drive their cars until their vehicles had received the battery replacement, or at worst, make sure that their cars were parked outside away from their homes, many of you were pretty eager to know what our take was on this latest Bolt EV fire. So today, I'm going to go over what we know, give you the official response from GM, and explain what I would personally like to see happen next. First up, the usual disclaimers. I and my partner both drive 2017 Chevrolet Bolt EVs. I have a 2017 Bolt EV LT and she has a 2017 Bolt EV Premier. Both of our cars received the original temporary software patch designed to restrict the maximum state of charge of the Bolt EV until the cause of a number of Bolt EV fires that had happened over the last year or so were determined and a permanent solution found. Additionally, Winter, one of the other presenters on this channel, also happens to own a 2017 Bolt EV Premier. It was actually the car that we spent the last week driving out west. Unlike my partner and I, however, who originally opted to wait for the permanent software fix to see if it could truly solve the problem, Winter and his partner investigated the possibility of a buyback of their Bolt EV under Maine's lemon law. Winter made a great video on it that you can see right here. The TLDR is, of course, that between the three of us, we've put many miles in behind the wheel of a Bolt EV, and to my knowledge, none of us have experienced any weird behaviour from our cars when it comes to drivetrain and battery pack, although Winter's car did throw an error last week coming through the Rockies. We also make extensive use of the Hilltop Reserve mode found in early Bolt EVs, charging our car's battery packs to around 90% full unless we're making a long-distance trip. And yes, each of these Bolt EVs does have DC quick charging. With that out of the way, to the most recent fire. According to House Representative Briglin, who maintains he still is a very strong supporter of the transition to electric vehicles, and he also happens to be the current chair of the Vermont House Committee on Energy and Technology, his 2019 Bolt EV was parked outside his home around 7 p.m. on Wednesday, June 30th. He plugged it in to charge around 8 p.m. the same night with an indicated 10% state of charge. He reported being woken up in the morning around 6:30 a.m. by what he said was, quote, very loud sucking noises coming from outside. Investigating, he saw smoke pouring out of the rear of his Bolt EV and reports that the car's alarm started to go off shortly after he went outside. Unplugging his car, he called 911 and 10 minutes later, after the fire department was getting ready to investigate the smoke, his Bolt EV burst into flames. Luckily for all involved, nobody was hurt, and the quick response of the local fire department meant that the fire was extinguished before the car was burnt to a crisp. While this is of little comfort to most Bolt EV owners, it should mean that more of this car, and hopefully its battery pack, will be available for investigation by the authorities. Regarding the car, Representative Briglin states that his 2019 Bolt EV, purchased in November 2018, did not have the original temporary software update applied since it only restricted the car's maximum state of charge and he decided he could manually restrict that himself. After the official fix for the 2019 Bolt EV was made available, however, Representative Brigland sent his Bolt EV in for the reprogram on June 9th. His car had just over 38,000 miles on the clock. This means that this particular fire is the first involving a vehicle which had received that final software update, the one that GM said would solve the issue of Bolt EVs spontaneously bursting into flames. This, frankly, should scare any Bolt EV owner. It does me. After all, if you've been told that a battery software update, one that took nearly a year to develop, doesn't actually appear to fix the problem that could in extreme situations lead to a vehicle fire, well, you have every right to be worried. As is usually the case with any incident like this, though, we did reach out to GM for an official statement on the matter, and here's the response. Quote, "Fortunately, there were no injuries as a result of this incident. We have reached out to the customer and are actively investigating the incident and gathering additional information to understand the specific circumstances." End quote. Sadly then, as we had already expected, this particular incident is something that's still not being publicly commented on beyond acknowledging its existence and promising to investigate it further. But it is pretty standard for any company in a situation like this to make this kind of standard, legally sound statement. And it's issued usually ahead of a more concrete one further down the road. But what does it mean for us with Bolt EVs? Who's to blame? And is the Bolt EV safe? So let's start with something that I suspect some people will feel peeved about. Why we are even bothering to cover this fire in the first place. As is usually the case, electric vehicle fires do get a lot of attention in the mainstream media, especially if it's Tesla, despite the undeniable fact that electric vehicles are far less likely to burst into flames than internal combustion engine ones. There are, frankly, many, many more internal combustion engine fires every day than there are battery electric vehicle fires, and statistically at least, according to data computed by Tesla several years ago, internal combustion engine vehicles are 11 times more likely to catch fire than a battery electric vehicle. But our job here is to cover the world of cleaner, greener, safer and smarter vehicles and energy, and that means the good bits and the bad. And frankly, fire is scary. Although, to make sure we're not engaging in hyperbole here, I should also point out that nearly 70,000 Bolt EVs sold thus far, there are only about a dozen documented cases of Bolt EVs catching fire due to said battery faults. Even if internal combustion engine vehicle fires are more common than battery electric ones, though, making sure we understand what happened here is essential. Right now, we don't have comprehensive answers, and that might take a while to find them. What we do know, however, is that of the Bolt EV fires that have occurred, the majority appear to involve 2019 model year Bolt EVs. Moreover, not all of which used Korean-made cells from LG Energy, because during the 2019 model year, GM shifted production for Bolt EV batteries from LG Energy's South Korea facility to a US-based factory operated in collaboration with LG Energy. What does appear to be evident is the fact that in the most recent fire, and one earlier this year involving a 2019 Bolt EV that received the temporary update but not the final one, that both fires appear to happen after a charging session which had started at a reasonably low state of charge but then went up to a fuller, but certainly not completely full, state of charge. And I think this is important because it does seem to suggest that there's something amiss with individual cell balancing within affected packs. When a pack is near the lower end of its usable capacity, the differences in voltages between the strongest cells and the weakest cells in the pack will be larger than it would be if the battery had a higher state of charge. I don't know if that's something that could play a part here, but if there are not proper cell balancing practices occurring during the charging process, that could spell a problem. That said, to be clear, what I just postulated is a complete stab in the dark. What isn't a complete stab in the dark, however, is the fact that GM's latest software for Bolt EVs does appear to be catching Bolt battery packs that are clearly defective. We've heard from a couple of viewers whose cars have thrown error codes and demanded a battery examination after first successfully going through that original battery software update and passing the original pre-upgraded battery test carried out as part of the final software update during the recall process. And as the most recent fire has demonstrated, the software update appeared to have worked, in so much as it sounded the horn to warn of a thermal runaway taking place. But while owners might know if their Bolt EV starts making a lot of noise that something might be amiss with the battery pack, those who happen across a recently charged Bolt EV blaring its horn in a parking lot might not. And that brings me to the finger of blame. As many outlets have commented, LG Energy has not had a great year. Porsche and Ford, both of whom used LG Energy batteries for their Taycan and Mustang Mach-E respectively, have suffered issues with their cars suddenly losing power or throwing error messages related to the drivetrain and battery pack. And sadly, while Bolt EVs with the updates are generally doing great, some Bolt EV owners are reaching out to tell us that after the update, their cars appear to have a sudden lost amount of range. Something I think is suggestive or indicative of something going bad in their car's battery pack. The Hyundai Kona EV was recalled with a confirmed battery defect that was found to be the seat of all of the Hyundai Kona EV battery fires over the last year. After first trying a software solution, Hyundai's final option, working alongside LG Energy, was to issue full battery recalls for all affected cars, replacing affected packs, and then giving owners new packs. That recall is 30% funded by Hyundai and 70% funded by LG Energy, and it's currently taking place around the world. Meanwhile, SK Innovation, the company that had been embroiled in a legal battle with LG Energy over IP theft, a battle which was settled out of court earlier this year with help from the Biden administration, doesn't actually appear to have had any issues with its car battery packs. The Kia e-Niro, which uses SK Innovation cells, has not suffered any battery fires I'm aware of, and Ford, which used LG Energy cells in its Mach-E, is switching to SKI for its Ford F-150 Lightning cells. Ford isn't apparently alone either. Volkswagen is now using SK Innovation cells as its battery of choice. So what does this mean? I'm pretty convinced now that there is clearly a quality control issue here with the Bolt EV that should require all battery packs to be replaced on all cars, especially ones that have demonstrated faults that originated in the pack. And like Hyundai, I think GM really has two options. First, it should reopen its buyback program and offer customers the option to sell their cars back to the company at an appropriate price. And second, it should work with LG Energy to offer a full, comprehensive battery replacement program. Right now, as Sean Graham, writing for Electrek notes, GM has the funds to make it happen. And he's right. It does. So my advice? Caution. Right now, no 2017 through 2018 Bolt EVs appear to have any of the issues post-update. But the 2019s, not so much. Owning two 2017s, I'll still admit to being a little uncomfortable driving them, but frankly we live in the country and we don't have any other cars we can drive. If I had a 2019, I'd frankly be reluctant to drive it at all, although as I said earlier, statistically, the risk is very slim that something bad will happen. Right now, I am only charging to 80% state of charge, I'm also making use of Hilltop Reserve, and I'd recommend parking outside. I'd also advocate, if you can, staying out of that bottom 20% of your car's battery pack. Keeping your battery in the golden zone between 20 and 80%, where voltage drift between the individual cells will be minimal, and I hope means the pack will be less stressed than it is at the bottom of the top of charge, should make sure everything stays okay. As I've said from the start, I've always thought a battery replacement is a smarter choice than a software update, especially as software fixes don't always work on hardware problems, if indeed that's what this is. That said, it is also possible the car in question didn't have the right update applied. I, like so many other Chevrolet Bolt EV owners, are now paying very close attention to what happens next, because LG Energy and GM is running on borrowed time, and according to my sources, there are at least 2 class action lawsuits on the way. That's it for today. Please do hit subscribe and that bell if you haven't yet, as it should make sure that you don't miss out on our videos. Do the same for our other two channels, Transport Evolved Take 2, and if you're in a hurry, Transport Evolved Shorts. Thanks on behalf of the entire TE crew go out to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month Patreon supporters. Although some of the folks who've signed up in the last couple of weeks haven't appeared yet because we're still getting everything back to normal. Special thanks to our $50 a month patrons, that's Andrew Martin, Guido Drahoa, Brophy Wolf, Anonymous Freak, Regine Fellows, Carl Hodgson, Gordon C, Paul Conway, Laura Sanborn, Anthony Coates, Denny Hyde, Sean Ueda and Tazla in the Gong, and our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters. They are John Lyons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin and Ian. If you'd like to join the ranks of wonderful supporters, then there are links below to Patreon, Bitcoin and Ko-fi. You can chat with TE fans over at Discord, as well as the rest of the TE team, and we are getting close to that 1000th Patreon supporter. So how about it? Maybe you could be our 1000th Patreon supporter, and there might be some super cool ideas for how to celebrate. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving!